The great hall of Nexus Prime stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the massive space. Some floated in specialized atmosphere bubbles, while others stood on platforms designed for their unique body types. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert hundreds of different languages into something everyone could understand. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the human observation section and tried not to look out of place. His small diplomatic team consisted of only 12 people, making them one of the smallest groups present. Around them, massive delegations from powerful alien empires filled entire sections of the hall. The Kithrin War bands alone numbered in the hundreds, their red-scaled bodies gleaming under the station's artificial lights. Commander Lisa Kane leaned over to whisper in Jake's ear. She had noticed the strange looks they were getting from other species. Some aliens pointed at the humans and spoke in hushed tones. Others simply stared with expressions that could have been curiosity or something else entirely. Lisa found it unsettling, but assumed it was normal xenophobia. Humans were still new to galactic society. After all, at the center of the hall, ancient beings that called themselves the ethereal elders prepared to speak. These creatures were old beyond measure, their translucent bodies barely holding together. After millions of years of existence, most species treated them with respect, but few took their warnings seriously anymore. The elders spoke often of ancient dangers and forgotten threats that younger races dismissed as paranoid fantasies. Elder Zephyr 9 rose from the speaking platform. Its voice carried across the hall without technological assistance, reaching directly into the minds of every being present. The elder's words came slowly, as if each one carried enormous weight. "We gather today to discuss the newest members of our galactic community," Zephyr 9 began. "The species from the third planet of the Sol system, the ones who call themselves humans." Jake felt every eye in the hall turn toward the human section. He tried to keep his expression neutral while his team shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had come here expecting routine diplomatic discussions, not to be the main topic of debate. "You look upon these beings and see weakness," the elder continued. "Small numbers, primitive technology, soft pink flesh that seems vulnerable to the slightest harm. You are wrong to think this way. We have seen their kind before, though not for many thousands of years." War Chief Razek of the Kithrin Empire stood up from his section. His 7-foot frame dominated the space around him, while his forearms gestured dismissively. "With respect, Ancient One, these humans pose no threat to anyone. Our intelligence reports show they have fewer than 200 space-capable vessels. Their weapons are chemical explosives and metal projectiles. My youngest warriors could conquer their entire world in a matter of days." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. The hegemony's artificial intelligence representative processed data streams in real time and announced its conclusions. Probability calculations confirm Kithrin assessment. Human military capability registers at 0.3% of galactic standard. Their industrial output is negligible. Population density indicates no significant threat potential. Collective's drone speakers remained silent, but their hive mind was already calculating invasion routes and resource extraction possibilities. To them, Earth looked like an easy target rich in biological diversity and rare minerals. Elder Zephyr 9 waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "You speak of their technology and numbers, as if these things matter. You count their ships and measure their weapons while missing what truly makes them dangerous. These humans come from a death world. Many species evolved on challenging planets," interrupted a delegate from the hegemony. "Environmental hardship is not uncommon in galactic development." "Not like this," Zephyr 9 replied with something that might have been sadness. "Their world is not merely challenging. It is actively hostile to life in ways that defy comprehension. Massive predators that hunt in coordinated packs. Weather systems that can destroy entire continents. Geological activity that regularly reshapes their planet's surface. Disease organisms that evolve specifically to kill them. Yet they not only survived these conditions, they thrived in them. Jake found himself leaning forward, despite his diplomatic training. The Elder was describing Earth, but in terms that made his home world sound like something from a nightmare. He thought about hurricanes and earthquakes, about the great white sharks and grizzly bears that shared Earth with humanity. Had other species really never encountered anything like that? Even if their world is as hostile as you claim, War Chief, Razek said with growing impatience, it does not change their current capabilities. Harsh environments may produce hardy individuals, but they do not create military might. These humans have no experience with real warfare. The Elder's form seemed to shimmer with something that might have been laughter. No experience with warfare? Their entire recorded history is an unbroken chain of conflicts. They have never known a generation without war somewhere on their planet. They create weapons not just for killing their enemies, but for killing their enemies more efficiently than their enemies can kill them. When they run out of external threats, they fight each other. When they run out of people to fight, they create new reasons for conflict. Barbaric, perhaps, the hegemony representative calculated, but primitive barbarism cannot overcome advanced technology and superior numbers. You still do not understand, Zephyr 9 said with infinite patience. We Elders have existed since before your civilizations learned to make fire. We have watched countless species rise and fall. We have seen empires that spanned galaxies crumble to dust. But never, in all our long existence, have we encountered anything like the humans of Earth. The Elder's voice grew quieter, forcing everyone in the hall to strain to hear. They do not surrender when defeated. They do not retreat when outnumbered. They do not submit when conquered. Every setback makes them stronger. Every loss teaches them new ways to win. They are evolution's answer to an impossible world, and they carry that impossibility with them wherever they go. The hall erupted in arguments and counter-arguments. Some species dismissed the Elder's words as the rambling fears of an ancient mind. Others began questioning whether they had underestimated the human threat. The Kithran delegation spoke loudly about testing, human resolve through force. The collective's drones calculated probabilities for various conquest scenarios. Through it all, Jake and his team sat in stunned silence. They were being discussed as if they were some kind of galactic menace, but all Jake could think about were the peaceful colonies they had established on distant worlds and the scientific research stations that represented humanity's greatest achievements. As the session finally ended and delegations began filing out of the hall, Elder Zephyr 9 approached the human section. Its ancient form moved with surprising grace as it made its way to where Jake sat. The other members of the diplomatic team instinctively moved back, but Jake stood his ground. The Elder pressed something into Jake's hand. It was a crystalline data core that felt warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Take this to your leaders, Zephyr 9 whispered in a voice only Jake could hear. When the storm comes, you will need to remember what you truly are. The galaxy is about to learn why we Elders chose to warn them, and why we knew they would not listen. Jake looked down at the crystal in his palm, then back up at the Elder, but Zephyr 9 was already moving away. Around them, alien delegations continued their heated discussions about human capabilities and galactic security. Jake had the uncomfortable feeling that his species had just become the center of attention in ways they never wanted or expected. 6 months had passed since the gathering at Nexus Prime, and the galaxy had not remained idle. In secret meeting rooms across dozens of star systems, the most powerful alien civilizations had formed what they called the Terran Subjugation Alliance. The name itself revealed their intentions and their confidence. This would not be a war between equals, but a simple demonstration of galactic superiority over an upstart species that had forgotten its place. War Chief Rozek stood before a massive holographic display showing the Sol system in perfect detail. Around him, military commanders from 3 different species studied Earth's defenses with the casual interest of predators examining prey. The human defensive positions looked pitiful compared to the armadas being assembled against them. The humans have approximately 200 ships, Rozek announced to the assembled commanders. Most are exploration vessels or cargo haulers that have been hastily converted for military use. Their largest warship carries fewer weapons than our smallest patrol craft. Intelligence estimates suggest they can field no more than 50 vessels, capable of actual combat. Commander Vex of the hegemony process tactical data through quantum computing arrays. Human industrial capacity remains limited to their home system. They possess no significant off-world manufacturing capabilities. Their technology level registers at approximately 15% of current galactic standards. Recommended engagement protocol involves overwhelming force applied simultaneously across multiple vectors. The collective's representative spoke in the flat, emotionless tone that characterized their hive mind communications. Biological assessment indicates humans require specific atmospheric conditions and temperature ranges for optimal function. Deployment of environmental warfare will reduce combat effectiveness by 73%. Capture protocols have been prepared for specimen collection and analysis. Rozek nodded with satisfaction. 3 of the galaxy's most powerful military forces working together against a single small species. The operation would serve multiple purposes beyond simple conquest. It would demonstrate the futility of resisting galactic authority, provide testing grounds for new weapon systems, and establish clear precedents for dealing with future upstart civilizations. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Steve Rogers stood in the command center of humanity's modest defense network. The room buzzed with activity as officers coordinated patrols and supply runs across the solar system. Earth's entire space navy would fit comfortably inside a single Kithron battle station, but Rogers had been working with what they had, the crystal data core that Captain Jake Morrison had brought back from Nexus. Prime sat on Rogers' desk like an accusation. Dr. Amy Foster had been studying it for months, and her preliminary reports made disturbing reading. According to the ethereal records, humans had somehow survived encounters with dozens of hostile alien species over the past several millennia. The problem was that humanity had no record of these encounters. Admiral, Dr. Foster said as she entered the command center carrying a data tablet. I've made another breakthrough with the ethereal archives. The records go back further than we thought. Much further. Rogers looked up from the tactical displays showing human defensive positions throughout the solar system. How much further? The first entry dates back over 10,000 years. The ethereals have been tracking human development since before recorded history. According to their files, we've been in contact with alien civilizations dozens of times. But somehow, we never remembered these encounters. That's impossible, Rogers said, but his voice lacked conviction. The ethereal data had been accurate about everything else they had been able to verify. Dr. Foster pulled up a holographic display showing Earth from space. The ethereals classify planets by habitability ratings. Most worlds that support advanced life rate between 7 and 9 on their scale. The galaxy's most dangerous death worlds typically rate between 4 and 5. What does Earth rate? Rogers asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Earth rates a 2, Foster replied quietly. According to ethereal classification systems, any planet rating below 3 is considered unsuitable for any form of advanced life. The fact that not only did life evolve on Earth, but that it produced a spacefaring civilization is apparently unprecedented in their records. Rogers stared at the holographic Earth, rotating slowly in front of them. It looked so peaceful from space, blue and white and green. Nothing about it suggested the kind of hostile environment that would terrify ancient alien civilizations. "There's more," Foster continued. "The ethereal records contain detailed analyses of human psychology and sociology. According to their observations, humans display behavioral patterns that are completely unknown among other galactic species, such as, we don't know when to quit. Every other species they've studied has natural surrender responses built into their psychology. When faced with overwhelming odds, they submit to preserve their lives and their species. Humans apparently lack this survival mechanism. Instead, we become more dangerous when cornered." Lieutenant Ben Carter's voice crackled over the communication system from his listening post on Europa. "Admiral, we're picking up increased alien communication traffic in the outer system. 3 separate fleets are taking positions just beyond scanner range. Analysis suggests they're preparing for coordinated assault." Rogers moved to the tactical display and studied the positioning of the alien forces. The Kithran fleet had taken position near Jupiter, using the gas giant's radiation to mask their approach vectors. The hegemony ships lurked in the asteroid belt, their advanced cloaking technology making exact numbers difficult to determine. The collective's bioships had somehow managed to approach from the direction of the sun, using solar radiation to hide their thermal signatures. "How long before they're in attack position?" Rogers asked. "Based on current movement patterns, approximately 72 hours, Carter replied. "Sir, the communication intercepts we've been monitoring suggest they consider this a training exercise. They're not expecting any significant resistance." Colonel Kate Phillips entered the command center, carrying the latest reports from Earth's ground-based defenses. "Admiral, we've finished converting the mining platforms in the asteroid belt to weapons platforms. It's not much, but Commander, Rick Davis thinks he can use them to create some unpleasant surprises." Rogers nodded grimly. Earth's defenses were impressive by human standards, but they looked pathetic compared to the forces arrayed against them. Humanity's entire space navy consisted of ships that had been built for exploration and peaceful contact with alien civilizations. None of them had been designed for the kind of warfare they were about to face. "What's the status on civilian evacuations?" Rogers asked. "We've managed to move about 30% of the population to the underground shelters," Phillips replied. "But sir, we both know those shelters won't hold up against orbital bombardment. If we lose the space battle, the ground defenses won't matter much." Dr. Foster looked up from her analysis of the ethereal data. "Admiral, there's something else in these records that you need to see. The ethereals weren't just observing human development. They were trying to understand why humans kept surviving encounters that should have destroyed them." She activated another holographic display showing genetic analysis charts and behavioral pattern studies. According to their research, human survival instincts operate differently from any other known species. Where other civilizations developed cooperation and submission as survival strategies, humans developed something they call adaptive aggression. When threatened, we don't just fight back. We learn from the threat and become better at fighting it. Rogers studied the alien text scrolling across the display. Even translated into English, the clinical language couldn't hide the underlying concern in the ethereal observations. "They're afraid of us." "Not afraid," Foster corrected. "Awed and worried. There are references here to something called the human solution to galactic threats. The ethereals seem to believe that humanity represents some kind of evolutionary answer to dangers they won't specify." The communication system crackled again as reports came in from monitoring stations throughout the solar system. The alien fleets were moving into final positions. Advanced scout ships had begun probing Earth's outer defenses, testing response times and analyzing human tactics. Captain Sue Henderson's voice came through from the destroyer Defiant, one of humanity's few purpose-built warships. Admiral, we're tracking multiple alien vessels, conducting reconnaissance sweeps. They're not even trying to hide their presence anymore. I think they want us to know they're coming. Rogers made his decision. Humanity had perhaps 2 days before. The invasion began in earnest. 2 days to prepare for a war against forces that outgunned them by orders of magnitude. 2 days to prove that the ethereal elders had been right to warn the galaxy about humanity's true nature. All stations, this is Admiral Rogers. Begin implementation of Defense Plan Alpha. All civilian vessels are to be evacuated to safe zones immediately. All military vessels are to take positions according to the contingency protocols we've been practicing. And someone get me a communication channel to Captain Morrison. If the ethereals were right about everything else, then maybe. The invasion of the Sol system began exactly as the Terran Subjugation Alliance had planned. 3 massive fleets materialized simultaneously at the edge of human space, their jump drives creating brilliant flashes of light that outshone distant stars. War Chief Razak commanded the Kithran forces from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that could have housed Earth's entire space navy in its cargo bays. The hegemony's geometric vessels arranged themselves in perfect mathematical formations, while the collective's bioships writhed through space like living creatures hunting for prey. The aliens expected token resistance, followed by rapid surrender. Instead, they encountered something no military academy in the galaxy had prepared them for. Human defenders who should have been overwhelmed and demoralized were instead displaying behaviors that defied every tactical simulation the aliens had run. Commander Rick Davis led the defense of the asteroid belt from a converted mining platform that barely qualified as a warship. Around him, crews of miners and engineers who had volunteered for military service operated weapon systems cobbled together from industrial equipment and salvaged alien technology. Their fleet consisted of cargo haulers, survey ships, and mining vessels that looked pitiful compared to the sleek alien warships bearing down on them. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported technician Mary Johnson from her sensor station. Hegemony cruiser squadron moving to flank our position. Davis studied the tactical display showing enemy positions. The alien formation was textbook perfect, designed to overwhelm his small force through superior firepower and coordinated assault. It was exactly the kind of attack that should have worked against any rational military force. All ships, execute Chaos Protocol, Davis ordered calmly. What happened next violated every principle of civilized warfare. Instead of maintaining formation and attempting to match the alien superior firepower, the human vessels scattered in seemingly random directions. Mining ships accelerated toward the largest enemy vessels, while cargo haulers dropped their loads of asteroid ore directly into the path of advancing alien formations. The hegemony commander found his perfect battle plan disrupted by opponents who refused to fight according to established military doctrine. Human ships didn't retreat when damaged. Instead, they accelerated toward their attackers with what could only be described as suicidal aggression. Captain Sue Henderson commanded the destroyer Defiant, one of the few ships in the human fleet actually designed for combat. Her vessel was severely outgunned by even the smallest alien warships. But Henderson had spent her entire career in Earth's dangerous asteroid mining operations were split-second. Decisions meant the difference between life and death. Ma'am, we've got 3 Kithran heavy cruisers closing on our position, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Mike Stevens. They're demanding our surrender. Henderson studied the tactical display showing her single, small warship facing 3 vessels that each outmaster ship by a factor of 10. According to every military manual ever written, the proper response was to surrender or retreat. Henderson had never been much for following manuals. "Signal all human vessels," she ordered. "Begin attack pattern Darwin." The Defiant accelerated directly toward the center of the Kithron formation. What the aliens interpreted as a desperate, last-ditch attack was actually something far more dangerous. Henderson was implementing tactics developed during Earth's deadliest conflicts. Strategies based on the principle that sometimes the only way to survive overwhelming odds was to make your enemy pay such a terrible price for victory that they would question whether victory was worth the cost. The first alien plasma barrage tore through the Defiant's hull, venting atmosphere and destroying half her weapon systems. Any other ship would have broken off the attack and attempted to escape. Instead, Henderson ordered maximum power to the engines and aimed her crippled vessel directly at the largest Kithran cruiser. War Chief Rozek watched from his command center as the tiny human ship bore down on one of his finest vessels. The human captain had to know that ramming would destroy both ships, yet she showed no signs of changing course. This was not rational military behavior. This was something else entirely. "All weapons, target that human vessel," Rozek ordered. "Stop it before it reaches the Vengeance." The combined firepower of 3 heavy cruisers focused on the Defiant, but Henderson had anticipated this response. She used the debris from her own damaged ship as improvised armor, hiding behind chunks of hull plating and machinery that her crew had deliberately jettisoned. When the Defiant finally impacted the Kithran cruiser, the explosion took both vessels out of the battle. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human crews demonstrated a complete disregard for conventional military wisdom. Mining ships used their industrial cutting lasers to slice through alien hull plating. Cargo vessels dropped their loads of raw materials directly onto enemy ships, using simple kinetic impact to devastating effect. Survey ships equipped with deep space sensors provided targeting data for attacks that should have been impossible at such extreme ranges. The Battle of Luna began when Colonel Kate Phillips led a ground assault that defied everything the aliens thought they knew about human capabilities. The collective had deployed drone armies to secure the moon's surface, expecting easy victory against defenders trapped in an airless, radiation-soaked environment. What they found instead were human marines who seemed to treat the lunar surface as their natural habitat. Phillips had grown up in the asteroid mining colonies where radiation exposure and low gravity were part of daily life. Her Marines were recruited from similar backgrounds, men and women who had spent their entire lives working in conditions that would be considered torture by most alien species. When the collective's biodrones attacked, they encountered defenders who moved through vacuum as easily as other species moved through atmosphere. "Alpha Squad, flank left and use the crater rim for cover," Phillips ordered over the radio. Her voice remained steady despite the fact that she was coordinating a ground battle in conditions that would kill most alien soldiers in minutes. The human Marines used the lunar environment itself as a weapon. They triggered avalanches in the low gravity to bury advancing enemy formations. They used the extreme temperature differences between lunar day and night to disable alien equipment. Most importantly, they fought with the kind of desperate creativity that only comes from a species accustomed to survival in impossible conditions. Drone Commander Unit 7743 of the collective reported back to the hive mind with growing confusion. Human defenders are not responding to standard suppression tactics. They continue fighting despite suffering casualties that should have broken their morale. Their tactical responses are unpredictable and appear to be based on individual initiative rather than centralized command. The collective had evolved as a hive mind species where all tactical decisions were made by the central intelligence and executed by mindless drones. They could not comprehend how human soldiers could function effectively without constant oversight and direction. The idea that individual Marines could make independent, Tactical decisions was completely foreign to their understanding of warfare. Dr. Amy Foster, monitoring the battle from Earth's command center, watched the tactical displays with growing amazement. Human forces were not just holding their own against vastly superior alien fleets. They were winning. More importantly, they were winning by fighting in ways that violated every principle of conventional galactic warfare. "Admiral Rogers," she called out, "I'm seeing patterns in the alien responses that match the ethereal predictions. The enemy fleets are designed for overwhelming force against opponents who follow standard military doctrine. They're having trouble adapting to our tactics because we're not fighting the way they expect any rational species to fight." Rogers studied the battle reports flowing in from across the solar system. Human losses were heavy, but alien losses were catastrophic. Ships that should have been able to destroy entire human squadrons were being taken out by individual vessels using tactics that bordered on insanity. "What exactly are we doing differently?" Rogers asked. Foster pulled up comparative analysis charts showing human versus alien tactical responses. Every other species in the galaxy has evolved past what they consider primitive aggressive instincts. Their military doctrine is based on overwhelming force, clean victories, and minimal losses. When they encounter serious resistance, their instinct is to withdraw and reassess. She highlighted sections of the tactical data showing alien fleet movements. Humans, on the other hand, have retained what the ethereals call adaptive aggression. When we encounter superior force, we don't retreat. We adapt. We find new ways to hurt our enemies. We turn our weaknesses into weapons. The communication system crackled with an emergency transmission from Lieutenant Ben Carter at the Europa listening post. "Admiral, we're intercepting communications from the Kithron flagship. War Chief Rozek is requesting immediate reinforcements." "Sir, they're not calling this a conquest anymore. They're calling it a war." Rogers looked at the tactical display showing the current state of the battle. In the 6 hours since the invasion began, the Terran Subjugation Alliance had lost nearly 40% of their invasion force. News of the human resistance spread through galactic civilization faster than the speed of light. Emergency sessions were called in dozens of star systems as governments struggled to understand how a primitive species from a backwater world had not only survived the galaxy's most powerful military alliance, but was actually winning the war. Admiral Steve Rogers stood in Earth's command center, surrounded by tactical displays showing human forces advancing deep into alien territory. What had begun as a desperate defense of Earth had evolved into something unprecedented in galactic history. Human ships, battered and improvised as they were, had begun appearing in alien home systems, striking at targets that should have been impossible to reach. The transformation had begun when Dr. Amy Foster's analysis team finally cracked the full meaning of the ethereal archives. The ancient records didn't just describe human encounters with alien species. They explained why those encounters had always ended the same way, with alien civilizations retreating in confusion and fear. "Admiral," Foster said, entering the command center with her latest report, "I've finished the analysis of the captured alien technology. The results explain everything about why we're winning this war." Rogers looked up from a tactical display showing the latest human raid on a hegemony supply depot. "What did you find?" Foster activated a holographic display showing comparative evolutionary charts. Every major galactic civilization evolved from worlds that were, by our standards, paradise planets. Stable climates, abundant resources, minimal natural disasters, and most importantly, very few apex predators. She pulled up images of alien homeworlds that looked like garden planets compared to Earth. The Kithron evolved from herbivores on a world with virtually no natural predators. A hegemony developed on a planet where the most dangerous life form was equivalent to our house cats. The collective evolved in an environment so stable that they never needed to develop individual survival instincts. Rogers studied the images of alien worlds with growing understanding. They never had to compete for survival the way we did. Exactly. Their entire concept of warfare is based on overwhelming displays of force, designed to make enemies submit without fighting. They've never encountered a species that fights harder when cornered, that adapts faster when threatened, that turns every disadvantage into a weapon. The truth was becoming clear through reports from human forces operating throughout alien space. Captain Jake Morrison led raids deep into Kithrin territory, using tactics that bewildered the alien military commanders. His small fleet of converted civilian ships moved through heavily defended systems by exploiting weaknesses that no rational species would have attempted to use. Morrison to command, his voice crackled through the communication system from somewhere in the Kithrin home system. We've successfully disabled their primary military academy. No casualties on our side, but sir, you need to see the intelligence we've gathered. The data Morrison transmitted back to Earth revealed the true scope of human advantages. Kithrin. Military training focused on parade formations and intimidation displays. Their warriors were taught to fight in ceremonial duels with predetermined outcomes. The concept of asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, or fighting to the death was completely foreign to their culture. Lieutenant Ben Carter's Special Operations Team had infiltrated a collective hive node and discovered something even more disturbing. When the collective had attempted to assimilate captured human prisoners, the process had failed catastrophically. Human neural patterns were not just resistant to hive mind integration, they were actively toxic to the collective's shared consciousness. The prisoners we rescued described the experience, Carter reported from his secure location deep in collective space. When the hive mind tried to absorb human thought patterns, our chaotic neural activity actually damaged their network. 3. Drone clusters went completely offline before they gave up the attempt. Dr. Foster's analysis of this data revealed another fundamental difference between humans and other galactic species. Human consciousness operates on principles of controlled chaos. Our brains evolved to process multiple contradictory inputs simultaneously while maintaining individual decision-making capability. The collective's hive mind literally cannot process that kind of neural activity without suffering system failures. The war had evolved beyond simple military conflict. Human tactics were psychologically devastating to alien forces accustomed to predictable ritualized warfare. When Colonel Kate Phillips led ground operations on alien worlds, her Marines didn't just defeat enemy forces. They shattered the aliens' entire understanding of how warfare was supposed to work. We're not just winning battles, Phillips reported from a captured hegemony outpost. We're breaking their will to fight. They keep asking us why we don't surrender when we're outnumbered. They can't understand why we fight harder when things get worse instead of giving up. The psychological impact was becoming evident in intercepted alien communications. Hegemony AI systems were generating probability matrices that showed inevitable human victory despite massive numerical disadvantages. Collective hive nodes were requesting quarantine protocols to avoid contact with human neural patterns. Kithrin military commanders were reporting discipline problems as their warriors began questioning the wisdom of fighting an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each defeat. War Chief Razak's final transmission, before his flagship was destroyed, revealed the depth of alien confusion and fear. We did not invade a primitive world. His message to the Kithrin High Command stated, "We awakened something that should have remained sleeping. These humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not seek victory through superior force. They seek victory through superior will. They cannot be defeated because they do not know how to accept defeat." The hegemony was the first to break. Their quantum computing networks calculated that continued resistance would result in total annihilation of their civilization. Unlike the Kithrin, who valued martial honor, or the collective, who operated on biological imperatives, the hegemony made decisions based purely on logical analysis. When their computers determined that humans represented an existential threat to galactic civilization, they began secret negotiations for surrender. Commander Lisa Kane found herself in the unprecedented position of accepting the surrender of a galactic superpower while sitting in the cramped command center of a converted cargo vessel. The hegemony's surrender terms were simple: complete withdrawal from human space and reparations in the form of advanced technology. "They're not just surrendering," Kane reported to Admiral Rogers. "They're offering us their military technology, their star charts, and access to their manufacturing facilities. Sir, they're treating us like we're the dominant galactic power." The collective followed the hegemony's example, but their withdrawal was driven by biological necessity rather than logical calculation. Human neural patterns had proved to be so toxic to their hive mind that continued contact threatened the stability of their entire species. Their bioships retreated to the deepest parts of collective space, leaving behind automated messages warning other species about the dangers of human psychological warfare. Only the Kithrin continued fighting, driven by pride and martial tradition. That prevented them from accepting defeat at the hands of what they still considered a primitive species. But even their warriors were beginning to understand that they faced something unprecedented in galactic history. Captain Sue Henderson, commanding a new ship built from salvaged alien technology and human engineering, led the final assault on the Kithrin stronghold systems. Her vessel represented something entirely new in galactic warfare: a hybrid of human tactical doctrine and alien advanced technology that was more dangerous than either component alone. "Henderson to all human forces," she broadcast as her fleet engaged the remaining Kithrin defenders. "Remember what the ethereals told us. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate a species that evolved to survive the impossible." The final Kithron stronghold fell after a battle that lasted only 3 hours. Faced with human tactics that turned their own superior technology against them, the remaining Kithron forces finally understood what War Chief Razak had tried to tell them. They were not fighting a conventional enemy. They were fighting evolution's answer to an impossible world, and that answer was proving more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever encountered. As reports of the Kithron surrender reached Earth, Dr. Foster made her final assessment of humanity's place in galactic civilization. "We didn't just win a war," she told Admiral Rogers. "We fundamentally changed how warfare works in this galaxy. Every species that fought us is going to have to rethink their entire approach to conflict. We've shown them that sometimes the most primitive species can be the most dangerous, not despite their primitive nature, but because of it." The war that was supposed to last days had ended after 8 months of brutal conflict that reshaped galactic civilization. Admiral Steve Rogers stood on the bridge of the Invictus, humanity's first true dreadnought, as alien fleets across the galaxy transmitted formal surrenders. The massive ship represented everything that made humans dangerous. It combined salvaged alien technology with human engineering principles that prioritized function over form, creating something that was more effective than elegant dot around Earth's orbital space. Hundreds of alien vessels waited in neat formations for permission to depart human space. These were not the same confident fleets that had arrived to subjugate a primitive species. Many ships showed battle damage that their crews had not bothered to repair, not because they lacked resources, but because they wanted visible reminders of what they had encountered in human space. Elder Zephyr 9 broadcast the final transmission of the ethereal race from the deepest archives of their ancient homeworld. The being that had tried to warn the galaxy about human capabilities was now the last of its kind, and its final message would become the foundation document of the new galactic order. To all species who receive this transmission, the Elder's voice carried across space with the weight of eons. We leave you this final warning and this final gift, the complete historical record of human encounters spanning the last 50,000 years of galactic civilization. The data burst that accompanied the Elder's message contained information that stunned every government in the galaxy. Humans had not just encountered alien species before their official first contact. They had been encountering and defeating alien threats for millennia, but somehow those encounters had been forgotten or dismissed as mythology. Dr. Amy Foster's team spent weeks analyzing the ethereal archives, and their findings explained humanity's true place in galactic history. The records show contact with 47 different alien civilizations over the past 50,000 years, she reported to the assembled human leadership. Every single encounter ended the same way. The alien species retreated after discovering that humans could not be conquered, enslaved, or destroyed. The implications were staggering. Humanity had been serving as an unconscious guardian for Earth and the surrounding stellar region for longer than recorded history. Every attempt at alien colonization or conquest had been quietly defeated by a species that didn't even realize it was fighting a cosmic war. Captain Jake Morrison found himself in the unprecedented position of humanity's first galactic ambassador, meeting with representatives from civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. The discussions were not about human conquest or revenge. Instead, they focused on establishing humanity's role in a galaxy that now understood it had a new apex predator. The question before us, Morrison addressed the emergency galactic assembly, is not whether humanity will take a leadership role in galactic affairs. The war has already answered that question. The real question is what kind of leadership we will provide. The assembled alien delegates listened in silence as Morrison outlined humanity's conditions for galactic peace. The terms were surprisingly moderate, focusing on preventing future conflicts rather than punishing past aggression. Humans wanted access to galactic technology and trade networks, but they also wanted guarantees that no species would ever again face the kind of coordinated assault that had been launched against Earth. War Chief Razak, one of the few Kithran military leaders to survive the war, spoke for many when he acknowledged the new reality. We measured human strength by counting their ships and weapons while ignoring what made them truly dangerous. We fought a species that had spent millions of years evolving to survive on a world that should have killed them. Every challenge they faced made them stronger. Every threat they encountered taught them new ways to fight. The collective's response came through automated transmissions from their core worlds, where the hive mind continued to struggle with the psychological damage inflicted by contact with human consciousness. Human neural patterns remain incompatible with collective consciousness integration. Recommend permanent quarantine protocols to prevent further contamination of hive network stability. The hegemony's quantum computing networks had reached similar conclusions through pure mathematical analysis. Their final assessment stated simply, probability of successful human conquest approaches zero across all calculated scenarios. Recommend immediate diplomatic integration and technology sharing agreements to prevent renewed conflict. Colonel Kate Phillips led the establishment of human military academies on worlds throughout the galaxy. Alien species that had spent millions of years avoiding conflict suddenly found themselves studying human tactical doctrine and survival strategies. The irony was not lost on anyone. The galaxy's most peaceful civilizations were now learning warfare from the species they had tried to destroy. We're not teaching them to be aggressive, Phillips explained to concerned human officials. We're teaching them to survive. The galaxy is full of threats that none of these species are prepared to handle because they've never had to fight for their existence the way we have. Lieutenant Ben Carter's intelligence analysis revealed the true scope of galactic vulnerability. Most alien civilizations have no concept of asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, or fighting against impossible odds. If they ever encounter a truly hostile force, they'll need the skills we take for granted just to survive. The transformation of galactic civilization accelerated as human advisors helped alien species develop defensive capabilities they had never needed before. Mining colonies learned to double as military outposts. Trade vessels were designed with combat capabilities. Most importantly, alien military commanders learned to think like humans when facing existential threats. Dr. Foster's final analysis of the war and its aftermath became required reading in academic institutions across the galaxy. Humanity represents evolution's solution to an impossible problem: how to create a species capable of surviving and thriving in any environment. Our adaptability, our refusal to surrender, and our ability to turn every disadvantage into a weapon make us uniquely suited to serve as guardians for civilizations that evolved in more peaceful environments. The new Galactic Accord was signed aboard the Invictus, with representatives from every major civilization acknowledging humanity's role as the galaxy's protectors. The document established principles that would have seemed impossible before the war. Peaceful species would be protected from aggression. Conflicts would be resolved through human mediation, and any attempt to create another subjugation alliance would be met with immediate human intervention. Commander Lisa Kane, now serving as humanity's military liaison to the galactic community, oversaw the integration of human tactical doctrine into alien defense forces. "We're not trying to make them into humans," she explained to the mixed species training classes. "We're trying to teach them to think like humans when their survival depends on it." The final scene of humanity's transformation from galactic newcomers to galactic guardians took place in classrooms across dozens of worlds. Alien children learned human history alongside their own, studying the species that had emerged from Earth's hostile environment to become the galaxy's unlikely protectors. Teacher Sarah Mitchell stood before a mixed class of human and alien students on the world of New Geneva, explaining the lessons of the recent war. "Humans are not invincible because we cannot be defeated," she told her attentive audience. "We are invincible because defeat only makes us stronger. We learned to survive on a world that tried to kill us every day, and that taught us something no other species in the galaxy ever learned. There is no situation so hopeless that you cannot find a way to fight back." A young Kithran student raised her scaled hand. "Teacher Mitchell, why did the elders try to warn everyone about humans if humans are protectors now?" Mitchell smiled as she considered the question. "Because the elders understood something that took the rest of the galaxy a war to learn. The same qualities that make humans perfect protectors also make us extremely dangerous enemies. They knew that how you treat humanity determines which side of our nature you encounter." The lesson continued, as it did in classrooms across the galaxy, with children of different species learning to understand the paradox of human nature. Earth's children had become the galaxy's guardians not through conquest or domination, but by proving that sometimes the most primitive species could be the most advanced when it came to the fundamental skill of survival. Elder Zephyr 9's final words echoed through the archives of every major civilization. The humans are invincible, not because they cannot be defeated, but because defeat only makes them stronger. They are evolution's answer to an impossible world, and now they are the galaxy's answer to an uncertain future. The war was over, but humanity's real work was just beginning. They had proven themselves capable of protecting galactic civilization from external threats. Now they had to prove themselves capable of protecting it from itself, and that would require all the wisdom they had gained from surviving on the most dangerous world in known space.